Hello, welcome back. I actually need to turn on my key light. Okay, there we go. Hello, welcome back to the stream. We have been starting this gallery of FPS themed UI. We started off with the pings. I'll show you those pings. We're going to be working on radials today. But here's the ping so far. 1, 2, 3. They stick to the edge of the screen, which is pretty cool. And you can cancel them. So they get these little cancel items pop up. You can also contextually ping on items. I set this up off stream and I'll show you how I did that. Just to wrap up the last stream. So, that's pretty cool, right? We got demonstration of replicated pings. We showed that off in the last episode as well. So, let me show you how I set up the pings on these items. So, it's pretty simple. You just add a ping. You set up the data asset. Data asset holds information like the name, the type of ping widget that we might want to show. In this case, we've got the generic ping on this one as well. And then this state of whether it's active by default. So you can do things like, for example, the ping that you produce is active by default. It spawns into the world and it's active. It registers with the manager. Everyone registers it. If you want to add teams and stuff in the future, you could do that to determine whether it should be listened to or not. Now, when we click on these ones, they're not active by default. You right click on them, or you middle click on them, sorry, and you get a ping that produces that. This one, just a different data asset, right? They're all different data assets. They've got different icons. This one is widget ping weapon, which is a pretty simple hierarchy. It's just a locked size with a border and an image on the inside here. It's actually done through a quick material that I whipped up. So let's go take a look at the material. It's got a couple of controls for translating the X and Y and then scaling UVs by center. If you don't see this function in your library, you can do a similar thing by just adding to the UVs just to offset the X and Y of that UV. Or you can get the Unreal Engine Material Lab and that'll give you all these nice little extra functions like SDF triangle that we used in the previous stream. Okay, so that's a quick run over for the pings that we created. No, I do not want to save this. Do not want to save any of this. Yeah, and they've got the little colors in there, little bits of data that power the actual visual element. And so this ping itself is a gameplay ability. And today we're going to create a radial menu, which allows you to hold down the ping button and throw up a radial menu on screen. Let's take a look at what that radial menu looks like. It is a little something like this. Essentially, we're going to make a radial menu widget, which takes a set of radial options, which is just those data assets, and the gameplay ability that receives an event, a gameplay event, which I'm going to use as a tag. So we're going to send a tag when we select one of these. We're going to release. It's going to send the tag over to the gameplay ability ping, which is going to listen to that and determine which data asset to use. So we're going to edit the data asset as well to include that gameplay tag. Gameplay tags are really useful for sort of non-coupled systems like that. So let's get started. Let's get started making a radial menu. Okay, I'm just going to pull this off to the side so I can see chat whilst we're doing this. Okay, hello chat, hello. Right, let's make a radial menu. Okay, so the first thing is we have a ping system. The radial is pretty much tied to the ping system. It is going to be a radial ping. Are there other types of radial menu things that I want to create? Am I trying to create a radial menu that can be used to do other things other than ping? Or should I change the name of this? Basically determining what folder structure I want for this asset. So allow me to sip coffee to try and produce a decision. Need to make a bunch of widgets, materials. They're dependent on the gameplay data system. Yeah, we should probably do the radial in here. Blueprints. We've got the ping actors. Cool. We've got the UI in here. There's a lot of UI in there. Kind of want to... It's okay. Let's make a new folder. Radial system. And in here, we're going to need widgets. Let's start off creating those widgets. Widget underscore radial menu. Let's open this up, and first thing I like to do whenever I create classes is I like to make them abstract. So the intention is that I'm going to extend from this radial menu, and the intention is I'm going to extend from this radial entry, and we're also going to want a radial center. So these are all now abstract classes. You can tell because they're black by default. What abstract classes do is it means you can't select them in a UI. So to just quickly, example that. If I come in here and say, I want a radial entry. I've accidentally opened Visual Studio, so it's taking a second. Let's just close Visual Studio. There we go. Say I want a radial entry. And we'll just use object for now. Actually, sorry, we need to use class. And I save this. I cannot pick the abstract entry class. But if I go and create a widget blueprint and then extend from the entry class, and we'll just name this what it should be, which is widget underscore radial underscore entry underscore generic, we'll just call it for now. I can now pick that class. That is allowed. That is a styled element. And the abstract parent is where all the code lives. And you can kind of think of this similarly to making a C++ file that holds just raw functionality and no visuals. It's very quick to cast to, it's very quick to load. Class-wise, it's the cheapest you can get. If we go and take a look at, we can take a look at a difference here. Let's say this is an actual styled element. We put some style in here. This isn't exactly how it works, but we'll use it as an example. Let's say there is a texture in here. And sounds and other things inside this generic entry. If we take a look at the size map of this master, you can see it's 21 kilobytes. It's code, it's script, it's tiny. If we take a look at the size map for the other one, if we were to cast to this, we would be loading, or if we were to reference this directly, we would be loading all these other elements, right? The texture, etc. So sounds and things like that. So that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of architecture I'm going for here. Okay. So let's make another little folder in here. It's just called styles, I guess. And we'll just say this is our first style. It's our radial entry. Okay. So for our radial menu, let's start writing some script because we actually need to draw this UI. So let's get rid of this function here. Let's make a variable. We'll just call this, actually, how do I want to manage this? When I create a radial menu, I want to give it a payload, and the payload is going to include all the pings that it can do, including this, or at least it needs to receive a payload that defines the look of a radial entry. So before we get anywhere in this radial menu, we actually need to create the data. So we go with primary data here. Here in C++, you could just extend from data asset, but we can only do it like this. So we've got BP underscore radial entry, or we'll call this, yeah, radial entry data, call this. And so in here, there's a couple of things that we need. We need the widget class that represents this entry. It's a radial entry. And we'll go, so now is a decision of whether we do this as a soft class or a hard class. So if I start the game and my UI knows that I have two types of radial, one for, say, these pings, and a second one if I press the space bar and I switch over to like a voice line radial, or there's just different buttons on the keyboard. But either way, in memory, I have visual pings, and I have another radial that's like voice lines or emotes and things like that. When those are in memory, if I have a hard reference like this, all of these are also in memory. The moment I press the middle mouse button in and hold it, it's going to draw those very quickly because it doesn't need to load anything. And I think that's reasonable. I think these are going to be small enough. And I think that the real data, the actual images and the sounds, those will all be soft referenced. So the actual size in memory of the radial itself, like the makeup of it, is fine that this is a hard class. This is already loaded. The sounds and the visuals and the cosmetics that are inside of this radial entry will be soft asynchronously loaded afterwards to incur the cost of loading that when you actually need it, and only for the duration of you actually needing it on screen. So that should be okay. And we can always change that decision if we find that the screen takes too long to load all those images for some reason. Then we could always change it to hard references, and we just say that the budget says that we load that all the time. Okay, so we've got the widget class. Just a couple of other generics, I think. We'll go with text fields. We'll say there's got to be a title. Oh, we spell title correctly. We'll say there's a description. That'll be cool. Hey, Mr. Requiem, and hey, Sida. So, soft or hard class, can you elaborate? Yes. A soft reference class is literally a string, a path that says that this is an asset that exists and I don't know what it is yet. And when you want to load it, you will have to call a function like this. This is a soft reference here. And you can see here, you can pick a soft reference. So you would plug this in. When this has completed loading, it now goes to that path. It pulls that data into memory, it loads it, and now it can actually use it, right? It can display it. It might be a sound, it might be a texture, etc. That's a soft class. A hard class, or hard reference, looks like this. And it means that you can literally just immediately create that widget. So that that is already in memory. The moment that this radial entry data class is somewhere in memory, in the radial menu, let's say, and it's held in your UI somewhere as a reference, then this is already loaded into memory as well, just so it's ready, basically. And so you get the option, you get to choose. Do I want to load this at runtime, throughout the game, myself, through Blueprint, or do I want to have this be like permanently loaded in memory? And that's the difference between hard and soft classes. Are you going to use data bundles to load UI elements? Not now, no. Been using game features lately, and that's kind of how I've seen that done, bundling things together in that sort of way. I would like to learn a little bit more about the bundles, because for the asset registry and or the asset manager in general, like, there's a loading screen plugin that I'm building in my spare time, and I have actually been thinking about, for the asset manager, creating a bundle for certain loading screens that you might have in one game versus another, or one iteration of a game versus another iteration. But I haven't looked too much into it, to be quite frankly honest. It's nice that you can specify async asset loading in the editor itself. Yeah, absolutely. And you can also do block loading, but if you watch the Unreal hitch hunting, hunt the hitch, or kill the hitch, blocking like this means that all currently ongoing async loads will get flushed. And I think it actually mentions it. This causes hitches, and we should use async load asset as where possible. So this causes a hitch. It's less than likely that you'll get a hitch from doing this in UI, because when you dump the load for a texture asset or sound asset, it's quite light, and it's not really going to cause that much of a hitch, as far as I know. But if you're load asset blocking while you're in the middle of opening a level, then the level's got a flush, and the level might be quite large, and so you'll get a huge hitch. Garbage collection. So anyway, let's move on. We've got titles, we've got descriptions, we've got a widget class. What other kind of things will we need? We will probably need an icon. Although my gut says we will pull that icon from the ping data itself, or the sound, like it's a sound cue, it has its own data asset entry, so we're not actually going to put icon in here. What we will put is a gameplay tag. So we'll put a gameplay tag in here. Let's go gameplay tag. I think it's this one. Compile this, double check it. Option, cool. We're going to put some gameplay tags in today. We're going to power that through this. We'll put this at the top. This gameplay tag, just thinking ahead of time, when my radial menu loads, draws all of its elements, or rather when the GA ping initializes, it's going to find these radial, find the ping assets that are relevant to that gameplay asset. So we're also going to add a gameplay tag into the ping assets. So I'll do that right now. So we're going to come in here, we're going to right click. This is a really quick way of adding this to another class. Don't know if you saw how quick that was, but rather than adding it here, finding it here, typing it in, I literally just, I say, oh, I want this in another class. Cut, paste, right click, promote to variable. And then now I've got it in here. So that's a nice little speed hack. So we've got a gameplay tag in here. That is going to basically allow it to be cached in a key map. We're going to key map gameplay tag to ping actor or ping data, and that's how we'll do some stuff a little bit later on, I think. Noob questions with Common UI input action widgets. Have you ever got the enhanced input hold action to work using the enhanced input Common UI? I haven't had to, but we are going to be doing that literally today, because holding down the middle action button is the middle mouse button. It is going to open this radial. So if you stick around, I will hit the same roadblocks that you hit, and we will solve them together, or work around them and try something different. But we are going to experience that today. We're going to be doing enhanced input action holds for this radial menu. Okay, so we've got a data asset. That's pretty cool. Let's make our first data entry. So we'll go radial data here. Let's put this in here. Okay, so in here, I'm going to create a new miscellaneous data asset, and it's going to be of a radial entry class. And inside here, we're going to DA radial entry underscore ping underscore go. And I'll make a couple of generic ones. So we'll have go enemy loot ammo. Oh, oops, did that wrong. So undo that. Enemy. We'll do loot ammo. What else could we do? Yeah, we could do something like defend 5. I want to do 6. I want to do 1. I want to do 1 over the top and 4 along the bottom. 5 is good. 5 is good. I'm going to do a radial menu where, and let me see if I can find a cool reference to this quickly. I am going to do, I've built a radial menu rather recently in a personal project in my evenings, and I actually have a picture to show, which is what we're going to be reproducing. We're going to build this kind of radial where elements can have their own sizing, and so that's what we're aiming at today. Okay, so we are 16 minutes in or longer. How far on are we? We are 19 minutes in. I'm sticking around now, lucky me. Yep, cool. So we got our radial data entry, that's cool. We've got our ping data, radial menu. Okay, so in our radial menu, we want to define some entries. Let's go radial data. We want this to be an object reference, an array of object references. And for each entry, we want to have angle or entry span. Entry span. This will be a float. And so we will need a function to kick this all off, which will be construct entries. So let's drag that into our construction script. And the next thing that we need to do is have like a panel that holds all this information. So I'm going to start off with an overlay. It's going to be a variable here. Overlay underscore entries. Let's call this. And I want to make a function out of this. So first we're just going to clear children, because we should always clear children anytime we want to reconstruct the entries. I'm going to convert this to a function that's just called get entry panel. And that output should not be an overlay panel, it should just be a panel widget, which means that any child of a radial menu can take a different type of panel. And we'll make that pure, and we'll ask if it's valid, and if it is, we'll do the rest of our code. So to start off with, that's going to get us started there, and then by default it's our overlay, but you can override that in a child. So just write this here, overrideable in children menu styles, or child menu styles, or extended menu styles, we should call it. Extended menu styles. Okay, that's cool. Right, so from here we're going to go through all the entries. So for each entry, we want to get the widget class, create a widget of that type, add it to our panel, add child. And then because this panel comes out as like a generic panel, we can't actually align this entry. So we'll have a little function, I think. So we'll just pop this here as a reference. This is a nice quick way of making a function that takes that as an input. So on entry created, we'll call this, and we'll call this entry widget. So what we'll do in here, in this case, is we will get slot. In this case, we'll do slot as overlay. And you can override this as well. Overrideable in extended widgets to control layout of children. So in this case, all I'm doing is I'm setting the horizontal and vertical alignment. To be fill. Because the way that this radial menu works is we have, say, a custom size here, 500 by 500. And we basically stack inside this overlay all of the widgets. So there's a bit of overdraw. But the reason for that is that the material that we'll make will actually render a, we look at this, right? It's going to render this element on to this canvas without having to rotate it and change things like that. They'll be static layout wise and essentially be somewhat invalidating a widget to save on recomputing the geometry. The geometry will be static, and the visuals will change. So there will be a paint cost. In Slate, there's two types of cost. There's a paint cost and there's a layout cost. If you move elements and twist them and do interesting things with them in transform space, or add widgets, remove widgets, maybe a text block changes size, that is all going to incur a layout cost. I am not answering that spam call. Okay, so back here, finishing off our function, construct entries, we have created an entry widget. That should be good. That should be everything. We'll see. There's one thing that this widget doesn't do right now, and it is that it does not take a data. So let's go add that. Radial entry data. Radial entry widget will know it's radial entry data. Radial entry data. And that will be an object instanced, exposed on spawn. And what that means is we can get things from here now, like the gameplay tag, for example. And that will allow us to go and find an asset for iconography. And so the asset that we'll be finding will be one of these. We'll do it by this gameplay tag here. Okay, and we'll put this into like an init style function. Init style. And that's actually just realized. Yeah, I guess we do. Do this. So this is the parent. This is the child. Child is obviously going to override init style because it's going to do something different with this asset. But what we could do is we could go find the asset and then return it and actually call this something else. We'll worry about that a little bit later on as we get closer to the end. The other thing that we're going to need to know is each of these has a different position. And that is something that we can feed from the array, right? So we can take this index and we can feed it how much that's going to be. So first we'll get the entry span. I'll go in here. Let's go back to our radial entry and we'll add wedge angle, I suppose. It's like the display angle. Angle? Wedge. I like to call it wedge angle. It is a wedge. So what should we call this? I call it display angle. So display angle and start angle. And the reason for these is that we're going to say this one is so wide and starts at such and such a location on the grid. So let's come in here, refresh this. We can now plug in our radial entry. That's cool. We have a display angle, which comes directly from this entry span. Actually, we could just call it angle span or span angle. Fun words, all fun words. Okay, so we also have this start angle. So we think about this. Let's say that the first element is 180 degrees, but we're starting at 0 because it's the first element. So let's do a select here and say if this is equal to 0, so the first element, it's going to be at 0. The second element is going to draw at the half size of the element before it, plus all other elements that have been drawn in a circle. So let's just figure out that math real quick. The math is that this element, which has a shape like so, starts at the 90-degree point due to the 180. So it's that plus, actually plus nothing. Then the next one, let's say I then add that. Let's say that's 45 degrees. It's not. It's 20 or 30 something. Anyway, so let's say there's only 4 elements at the bottom here. It's 45 degrees. We started at 90. We drew it right there. And then we need to add 45 again. Where's that going to take us? It should take us here. Okay, well, is it? Here? Yeah, okay. So it just starts adding them up. It just straight up starts adding them together. One really cool thing as well with this apex ping is the reason I picked this one is it's got this cool element that moves around with you as you rotate, but also it's got this blur in the background, which we'll do on another stream. I think that this is a really cool, difficult to reproduce visual design that's going to require some material complexity that will be quite cool to produce, because you can't just do that in Unreal. That's a visual design or a tech art problem that we're going to have to solve, is putting a blur in a ring. And so we'll be looking into that as well, probably in the next episode. Okay, so far what we need is a local variable, L total span, I suppose we would call it. And if we're not the first element, we'll use total span as our live blurs are a beast. Yes, and expensive. I don't know if do I have the guts to do it? We'll check the slate cost. We'll check the render cost. Hopefully, we'll do like a GPU profile, and we'll see how that turns out when we get there. Because yeah, the more passes that you do, the more expensive it's going to be, and that could be a mistake. And maybe we'll fake it in another way, some sort of texture. Okay, anyway. Taking a sip of that coffee. Okay, so we have this total span. Total span must add the entry span at some point. Must add the entry span halved? At least in the first case, it needs to be the entry span halved. So let's grab this 0 element again. If it's the first element, we'll take this property. This is where it starts to get real spicy with the graph layout here. Let's just stick this at the end. So if it's the first entry, we'll be taking this and we'll be dividing it by 2. Otherwise, we're just going to add it. I think is good math. Could you just have a blurred square that is then masked as a circle? I have tried this in the past. So if you take a blur panel from UMG and you try to like get a retainer box to then ring that, right? Like you want to retain, maybe you only want to retain the blur in that ring and then unretain what's in the middle. You've already rendered like the viewport. Well, there's some issue with that. I remember trying to do it that way, where I basically put a blur panel into a retainer box and try and have that retainer box apply a material over the top to modify the outcome. We can try it again. I do recall trying that once in a past studio, but it would be cool to see if I've learned some tricks since then. We could try that, yeah. I'm going to use Gaussian blur, which requires you to do some expensive calculations on the image. Yeah, exactly. It's like a multi-pass HLSL over the pixels that can't be collapsed by Unreal, so we end up paying the cost of the blur on every pixel, which is why we're going to profile it. But also it's a prototype, so we often asked if we could do something and not whether we should. Yeah, there are some nuances for sure. Chat is on it with the nuances, which is good to see. I've seen box blur used, or even doing the blur once and then freeze framing it. Yeah, that's what I was kind of talking about with the retainer box. So I am curious if I can take a retainer box with a blur panel inside of it and then only retain, or permanently retain, I should say, the ring and then unretain it like the rest, and like it renders the rest as normal. But then you might get like a static render of whatever was behind it for the rest of you running around. I don't know. It's a prototype. Leave the optimization to the engineers. Yeah, and the other more experienced tech artists. I said I'd make it work. I didn't say I'd make it good. No. My opinion on that has changed over the years. I now attempt to make it also good at the same time. Let's move on. Let's get closer to crossing that bridge. Let's get closer to crossing that bridge. We're going to construct the entries. We've got the entries. We've constructed them. We've added the children. We've called something that we can play around with those entries. And then we've increased the total span. That seems reasonable to me. If I go look at the designer now, there's nothing in here because we don't have any entries. So let's add those 5 entries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's add data into these. So we'll start with the top one being go. And then the next one being, let's think about this. How do we want to do this? I want the next one to be enemy. And I want the next one to be ammo, and then loot, and then defend. Okay. And then I also need entry span. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my entry span. The first entry is 180. Everything else is 45. 45, 45, 45, 45. 45. There we go. Compile that. So now we technically have a bunch of entries in here, but we can't see them. So let's go and play with this element here. So let's create an overlay. This is our generic entry style. And assuming that I actually put widget styles in these, which I did not, but we can do that by bulk. So we can select all of these asset actions, bulk edit somewhere in here, edit selection in matrix, select all of these, and set the widget class. We have to do it by eyedropper, so let's go do that. styles, entry generic, add, save. So there's probably an uncaught exception that I should go and catch, which is right here. We should validate this widget entry, because otherwise we're going to try and create an entry that doesn't exist. Kappa. Widget entry generic. Currently, let's just do custom 500 by 500, and let's stick an image in here just to see something happening. Stick this in the middle. Let's just compile it. Go back to our Radial entry menu, designer. There we go. We have something drawing the first UI of the stream after 36 minutes. Fair enough. Love the cloak and dagger approaches and hoping that players don't notice. Isn't it all just... aren't games just all about faking it? You can just fake it smarter sometimes. It's all an illusion. Freeze framing the blur would only work for a game if it's paused, yeah. Yeah, freeze framing wouldn't work all the time. Okay, so let's make material. Okay, so let's go in here, let's just say materials. Let's make our first material here. So m_radial entry. Sure. Let's make this a UI material. User interface, let's make it translucent. And now we want to grab the UVs and sort of do some math to it to create a wedge. There is also vector to radial, which I'm going to quickly try, because I have used this a few times in the past. These are the UVs. Is that it? Insert a vector 2 value to retrieve the vector's angle, or insert UVs to retrieve radial coordinates. Well, let's just see what happens. It's not what I wanted. How about this? It's not what I wanted. How about adding 0.5 to this? It's not what I wanted. How do I get this to create a circle? There is a way. There is a way to make this create a circle. Let's go and Google it. UE5 radial vector. Radial. Come on, give me a circle. It's right there. You subtract 0.5 and multiply it by 2. Not by 12. Do as I say, not as I do. Then they swizzle it. Why would you swizzle it? Okay, so we got this. Oh, does swizzle do custom rotator without having to do a custom rotator? If that actually works, I'm gonna... No. What if I 1 minus this? I just destroyed it entirely. I don't really want to swizzle it in that direction because I want this to be at the top. So I'm just going to custom rotate this. Custom rotator. We're going to rotate this by the scalar angle, which we'll actually call this like span angle, or angle span. It's the span of the widget that we want this to do. Can't believe you didn't swizzle when you had the chance. I swizzled for a second. I swizzled on it for a brief second, and then I decided to custom rotate instead. Angle span. We'll go with 45 to start with, but we also need to just have that default 90, right? So let's just rotate it by, that's not right, 90 here. Not allowed. Maybe I've got to do it a little bit earlier. Let's rotate it here. Not allowed. Is this not where... This should be 0.5, right? Yeah, okay. Swizzle coordinates. Yes. Swizzle them, please. Well, I made a circle. I made a circle? I guess that's how you take like a linear brush stroke and then like wrap it in a circle, which is something that I want to do at some point. Vector converted to angle, maybe that's better. No, I mean it came out with the same output, so... Okay. Oh, I know why this isn't working, because I didn't divide it by 360, so this is a 0 to 1 normalized value. Minus 90, there we go, now we have what we want. sort of, it's black to white instead of white to black. So maybe now I can 1- it. Minus 90. I didn't do what I wanted. Maybe I need to. I think I need to. Let's go 90 here. Whoa. 90 here. This is just 0 to 1 space, normalized angle. What we're going to do is we're going to step this to essentially, well, I could show you the kind of end result of what we're going to do here. We're going to step this with some numbers. And then we start getting this thing, which I think you then saturate. You don't just saturate it. Of course, that just doesn't immediately work. Am I doing that wrong? Probably doing it wrong. Step. Look, now we're getting what we want. Then 1 minus this. Now we've got a wedge. Okay, and then what we do is we also add probably half of the angle span. Oh yeah, divided by 360. Oh, I suppose we could do it like this. 1, 2, less divides, less nodes. You can see the instruction count down here just slowly growing over time. Okay, so we're here now. This needs to be divided by 2. That is not perfect. That is not perfect. Zero. 0.001. 1. I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. This is where I've got to. I'm doing it wrong. Let's type UE5 vector angle wedge material. Should probably type material. Wedge pi. Looking up some references quickly. Okay. Just trying to find the right material graph. It's like not the most insane thing. Some people are using an if. I don't really want to use an if statement in the material because that will not be as nice as a smooth step. I kind of want to use a smooth step. U5 vector angle smooth step. Let's try that. I guess I need the keyword material. I am literally doing this on my other screen, so it might be quite boring for you guys right now. You guys listen to the sound of my voice while I quickly find the next thing in at least the next 5 minutes, and we'll be done with this wedge. And if we don't, I will open a project that has the material in it. Because this is and oh, I'll tell you what we could do. We could go to ChatGPT, our old friend. Okay. List the Unreal Engine material nodes to create a angled wedge from arctan to math. So we're basically the arctangent math gives you a wedge nicely. I know that because I've done it before. Okay, so I'm just going to follow what it says, and we'll see what the result is. So I really was hoping to simplify my life by using this method here, but it was an experiment, and the experiment died with let's just use the ChatGPT, which is actually pretty good at math, because math is just patterns. So we'll go with that. So we're going to take the UVs and we're going to subtract 0.5 to get the center of the UVs, which we are then going to mask. No, we should just break them. I'm going to ignore what it said there, and I'm just going to break it. Then this goes into an arctan 2. Although it is telling me that the G goes in there. Interesting. Yeah, and then we're going to... Cool. We're going to multiply this. Pi. Two x pi. Multiply by 1 divided by... okay. I haven't done it this way before. Let's try this. 1 divided by 2x pi. Okay, awesome. What happens if I start previewing this? We have a shape. Then add 0.5. This is now... This is what we had from here. I mean, if we start previewing this, we just have that in a different format. So it might go better. Start angles. Okay, let's have a look. Start angle. Oh, we already had start angle, did we not? We don't really need start. Okay, so start angle. Suppose we do need start angle. Start angle divided by 360. Divide, add, etc. Frac. It's fractal that's going to give, like fraction, sorry, not fractal, what am I talking about? I'm just trying to look at the chat here. We have the official, why can't do this with an image? You can do it with an image. The problem doing this with an image is that it's static. If your UI has high resolution or smaller resolution, or you want to add some fade, or you want to control the fade, or there's so many other reasons that doing this through node logic opens up so many options to you. So once we have this, what is essentially what we're creating is a signed distance field. It's going to be a signed piece of math that says over here is 0, this is 1, this is 0, and then we can play with those values. We can power and control them. You could just import this particular, where is it? Oh, I've lost it now. Nope, not that one. You can just import this as a texture, but it's not computationally created. So if you render that wedge now on a big screen, it's at the mercy of the pixel resolution of the texture that you imported. So when we do it through math like this, we get like nice perfection, and we can play with the variables a lot more, and we can do other things like yes, you could import it, basically, is the answer, but your pixel density and your resolution will suffer. This is done through code, so this is, like, it doesn't matter how far I zoom in, I'm at 400% now, and it's exactly the same, whereas if I zoomed in 400% on a 256 image, it would be bad, and then someone would say, import it at 512, and then it would still be slightly bad, and then they say, import it at 1024, and now we're paying the cost of a texture that could otherwise render a character for a circle. So tech out code for the win is the short answer. Quick question, can you recommend some material courses for UI materials I think would be amazing to work with? Yes, I can, and I will. Yeah, let me bring it up. There's two actually that come to mind. So the first one is Joyrock, especially if you're looking into UI materials. So it's like Slate, UMG tips, material, untapped material nodes, like pixel stuff. Got a whole bunch of stuff in here, and the reason that I really trust this particular content creator is they work at Epic Games, so they know the tool. And they've got a lot of resources in there. The other one is like CG How. Just generally does a whole bunch of this sort of stuff. And materials and other tech art, and just has loads of shorts and interesting stuff to say about materials. So if you're looking into materials, these two are pretty good ones. I probably have a ton more that I could pull out. In fact, if you join the Discord channel that's linked, there is a resources channel in that Discord that has a bunch of links to good resources. There's a couple of GDC talks actually on like the top 100 material things you didn't know how to do. Oh, and in fact, like we could probably type that in as well. If we just came in here, Unreal Fest, spell it correctly, Unreal Fest material. Materials, new enhanced features, not so interesting. That one, boosting UI performance with materials. I've watched that one. That one's pretty cool. This one's pretty cool. This one's like UI, UMG for things that you should be doing and optimizations. But we could scroll this and we'll find something of value. Like, oh, look at this one. This looks fun. Hey, I recognize that guy. Unreal Fest material tricks. 50 tips and tricks in modeling mode. That is also pretty cool. If you haven't used the modeling mode, very cool. Advanced UI templating, that one's good. I think that's Irene as well, or it might be Adrian Pugh. It's Adrian Pugh, yeah. Maybe they're the same person. No. Anyway, loads of cool resources there. Yeah, I use the modeling tool every day too. Yeah, it's a great tool. It's amazing, especially for someone like Iron Taxi's environment art. Okay, where's the Discord link? It should be in the description. Should be in the description. Let me go find. I did have a live link to this channel, but maybe the description didn't work, but it will be in our other videos. Hey Zahib, welcome. Okay, so back to our regularly scheduled programming. Hello, welcome to the Unreal Game Dev Show. Today we are creating radial menus. We haven't got there yet. We have got this far. We have created all of our data. We are in the process of creating a wedge in this UI, and I was partway through working through the maths, which I will then apply to the render, and we'll start rendering out like and hovering over radial elements. So we have angle span here, 45. Can I just duplicate this and reuse it again? I can. Is that recommended? Probably not. Let's reroute this. Raw angle span. Take this one, start angle. We'll named reroute this. Named reroute. Raw start angle. Where was I? I've been here for a while. Oh, fair enough. We're at 54 minutes. Did not get a wedge in the 5 minutes I mentioned, so we're going to give it 5 more minutes. Let's try and whip through this GPT guide for creating a signed distance field wedge for a radial menu that will give us a bunch of controls in the future if we so wanted them. Okay. Start angle divided by 360 is start 01. Named reroute. Raw angle 01. This is just saying it's a 0 to 1 angle. So this is going to be raw start angle 01. This is going to be raw span angle, or raw angle span 0 to 1. Sorry, no, it's not. I lied. I lied. It's not. We need to do raw angle span divided by 360, and that becomes our 0 to 1. And then we want to take raw start angle divided by 360. That gives us our. This is no longer raw. I like to call it raw if it's like the first, like the initial, the default. So, okay, so we have this. I'm now going to just clean some of this up. Although this is actually old code. Probably shouldn't worry about it too much, but I don't need to put raw angle span in here now. Put these over here, and now use angle span 0, 1. Divide that by 2. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take this down here. Okay, so we have our spans. We're going to take angle 1, which is this. Named reroute. Angle 0 to 1. Spelt it wrong. Angle 0 to 1. Okay. We are going to take angle 0, 1. And we are going to add 1 minus, oh, the 1 minus of start. Start angle 0, 1, 1 minus this into here, or angle 0, 1 minus start 0, 1, then frac is the angle shifted. Let's take a look at this. It just looks brighter. I don't see the difference. Start previewing node. Oh, I suppose the difference is that the angle has been shifted a little. Okay. Frac. Angle shifted. Okay, fraction. Oh, would you look at that? That is 45 degrees tilted to the left. That's exactly what I wanted. And now this from here to here is my 45-degree wedge, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Span 0, 1. Span 0, 1. Multiplied by 0.5 is my half span. Named slot. Half span. Call it half span 0, 1 to be honest. Subtract. .5. Wait, no, it's angle wrapped. Which is this. Subtract 0.5 to center it again, apparently. Okay. Trusting you, GPT. Don't let me down. Get the absolute of this. Less or compare? I don't want to do a less or compare. I hate that. I hate that decision that GPT has chosen to give me. What I'm going to do quickly is, because we have got 8 seconds left until I said that I'm done with this, I'm going to go and open up an experiment that I did a couple of however longs ago. Let's pop this open. I'm going to pull the math from somewhere else. Because this kind of thing that I don't really want to spend on stream doing for ages. I want to do the cool stuff. I want to actually get it working. I want to display it on screen. I've got an hour left to do that. I don't want to really be spending this entire time. Okay, so let's see where this takes us, because I've just realized I read it wrong. Okay, edge softness. Edge softness, new variable. We'll call this 0.01. Let's go with that. And the reason that we're doing edge softness here is to stop anti-aliasing. So someone who asked earlier, why aren't you using a texture for the circle thing? Or just a texture for the wedge or whatever. I can change the size of the wedges dynamically through this method because it's all math driven. But also, when it comes to the hard edges of a wedge or that circle texture, we want to feather it, basically. We want to anti-alias it, because otherwise in the UI, you're just going to have these like jaggeds everywhere. So we're going to use this edge softness to do that. So the absolute here minus half span. Remember me, Ashmandal? How you doing, man? I don't. It's been ages since I did streaming, but I'm sure we were the best of friends. And welcome back. I'm glad you've joined us. I am back to trying to do streams somewhat frequently again, especially in 2026. Busy with college. I hope it went well. Good hunting. Yeah, man. Awesome. I've been pulled onto bigger projects, so I haven't been streaming very much. So you didn't miss anything while you're away. I'm going to divide this, and we're going to saturate this, or we're going to, at least we're going to saturate a 1 minus of the step value. Step. Where is step value? Miss something here? Yep, we're going to use the smooth step, which is what I want, and we're going to take half step or half span, and then we're going to take half span plus edge softness. Here, short. It just keeps telling me different things, and then absolute angle centered. So it's this one. So let's see if this actually produced what I wanted, and if it doesn't, I'm going to go and try something else. Yes, this absolutely, I broke it, and it absolutely didn't do what I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and somewhat start this again. Okay, so I have another project, and I'm going to open up the radial for it. Primers. Where's my radial menu? Radial core, radial angle. I actually did this in a material function. I'm just going to steal the core. Take me a second. Okay, so it should be this, right? And then this goes into here, and then angle normalized, which is, I believe, raw angle. So angle span 0, 1 goes into here, and then if I start previewing this, I should no. Okay. Why? Divided by 2. I'm literally copying this from another thing now. Just math, basically. Math? No one wants to do math. Start angle here. Which one? Start angle normalized. Start angle 0 to 1. Plug that into this add here. Look at this. We're starting to get something, maybe nothing. We've got a pi x2 here. Well, that should be in here. Basically, this is pi 2x. Well, apparently pi 1x gives me that, but that's not what I want. Okay. So now I just need to debug why that's not working, because that should be it. This is basically what I recall usually. Am I doing this wrong? Am I previewing this? No, this should be fine. By the way, I had a doubt regarding Blueprint. nodes, as I was creating a proximity meter, which will show the distance, and if you close it, will change the number and the color, but getting too many errors. Luckily in Blueprint, in regular Blueprint, you can kind of go through in F9 on these, and then you can step through them, and when you're stepping through, you can actually hover these values, or you can right click and you can watch the value, and it will pop up at the top here to tell you like what's going on. So Blueprint should be pretty easy to debug if you're having problems with like some logical errors. And you can also use the Blueprint debugger. So if you go to debug, Blueprint debugger, and then when you're running, you can actually open the asset and just view all the variables. I think you can even see the call stack like chain of commands that happened that also help you debug. So yeah, debug, Blueprint debugger, also super helpful tool. If you're working in Blueprint, you should know about that one. That one's a pretty good one. So question for myself here. I should probably clamp this. I've also run these the wrong way around, which won't help one bit. There we go. That's probably why my code that I had before didn't work. Is because I literally had this the wrong way around. So we have a wedge now. I'm going to compile that. We're now going to do stuff with this. Let's just stop previewing it for now. In fact, if I just copy this and then just go back a few steps. Control Zing this fast is like an awesome way to crash Unreal Engine. And in fact, if I go to my notepad and just paste in that so that if it does crash, I still have the thing. Right, okay, cool. I want to get rid of all this. Actually, Control Z, get rid of this, paste it back in. Should be good? Yeah. Right, smooth step, start previewing. No, still no good. Start previewing this. No, still no good. Okay. Well, we'll just carry on with this one then. There should be a way to smooth step, like instead of flooring this. Don't really want to do that. Maybe I'm supposed to... Oh, invalid reroute names. Yeah, that's not going to help. Yeah, that's really not going to help. They're still all invalid. Gotta be kidding me. I did it. I did it. I crashed it. Look at me go. Right, okay. So going back to the drawing board quickly, got to reopen that project. Everything go to the desktop. Boom. Okay. Back to stream. All right. Let's have a look here. Yes, there's many ways to debug. Okay, we're back in the gym. We're looking at the radial entry. We have this code. This is good enough. Let's get our UVs and make a circle out of it. So if we just do distance to 0.5, so get 2 vector here. We do distance to 0.5 like this, and that will generally give us most of what we need for a circle. I think we probably want to multiply it by 2. If we start previewing this, we'll have this like kind of circle, and we can do some stuff with that to give us our desired circle. So let's get a composite over here. This is our final color. We're going to want a named reroute for opacity. So we'll just plug that in here. Opacity. That'll be cool. Okay, let's go build opacity. So opacity starts with, we're going to do a named reroute here. Just call this wedge. Opacity starts with wedge, but it also multiplies by a part of this circle. If I actually do this and then preview this, you'll see I get this like fade here. What I want to do is I want to clip the outside and I want to clip the inside so that I end up with, you know, a wedge. So what time are we at now? Crash? Oh yeah. Yeah. I do crash a lot in real life. So we're going to need two variables. We're going to need an inner radius for the wedges, and we're going to need an outer radius for the wedges. And so for this, I'm going to use 1, should be fine. And the inner radius, I'll just use 0.5. Okay, so we have these two variables, and what I want to do is we'll call this one radius, named reroute radius. Take this radius down here. Let's see if we can sort of do something similar to this, but maybe we can straight step the radius by 0.5. What does that do? Gives us a black circle. What happens if we step the radius with the larger one? We get a larger circle. And so between these two circles, we can now create a ring. I'm just going to go put some new music on. I say new music. I'm going to put different music on. Same music we know and love. Just checking out this radio here. So we're going to try and create a little bit more of that. Okay. So we have this, or these two concepts. We have one black circle and another black circle. What we need to create is a white band in between. And so what we might want to do is actually 1 minus this to get this to be a white circle. And then we take a look at this. If we were to 1 minus this, and then subtract these from each other, possibly. So we're now going to subtract this number 1 from this really big number 1, which makes this center bit 0. So we take this and we subtract this, and ta-da, we get a ring. I was correct. Okay, so now that we have this we can just named reroute as ring. And we can plug this up here. Ring. Multiply these together, we get our opacity. Now we have an element that we can use to represent a ring. And we could do extra stuff with this, I think. We could make this a little bit prettier, maybe. We could say, take the radius. Take the radius and actually multiply the opacity by the radius. And that will give us like a gradient here. Let's take this radius and we'll power and multiply it a little bit to give it a little bit more interest. So we'll power it by 5, multiply by 5, 10. Maybe I should have 1 minus this so that we're doing it the opposite direction. Yeah, something like this. So this will be our radial. Maybe that will be what we'll use for a glow when we're hovering. So maybe we could do a lerp here and just do hovered as a variable, 0 by default. Hover this with the Alt key. The Alt key? It's not going to work. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to put this in here. And if we are 1, then it should be this. And if we are not 1, we are 0. But I'll do like, I don't know, 0.1. Yeah. So it's either this when we're not hovered or this when we are hovered. And maybe we should also clamp this variable. So we get something nice there. It might be a little bit too much. I might need to bring this down a little bit. That looks good enough. Just like really quick biz dev stuff. Okay. Comment all this up and you're good to go. I'm not going to spend any more time inside here. I would love to save. Okay, so now we have this radial entry. It is going to go into our generic entry. this goes full size, and we grab our material, pop it in here. Now if we go and look at our radial menu that we've been building, we have a whole ton of entries all on top of each other, and you can see what I meant about the pixelation. So that's where smooth step comes in, and you need to do a little bit more math to achieve that, and I can kind of show you what that more math looks like. This is a fully configured wedge basically, and this is where you can get to with that kind of design. You can control all kinds of things, the thickness of any of these. You can do gradients on the left or the right. You can have like a fill over this. This is something that I built a long time ago. But anyway. Right. Back to building this one fresh. So we now have this. What we're not doing is we're not updating the position or the span. So what we do on, I think it was the override init style. Of course not. Can't override init style. Why would that be a thing? What did I do wrong? It's in my radial entry, so it is a function, and I should be able to override it. Init style. There we go. So this occurs on construction. Just delete everything else. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the image, we're going to get the dynamic material. We're going to set some scalar parameters. And that's the start and span. So if you remember, you were here, when we create this widget, we use some array index based math for the entries. We have some spans here, 180, 45. We're plugging that into this radial entry, and now we're going to end up having to debug it because it's going to be broken. Start angle, span angle, I think we created. Display angle, cool. So we'll plug that in here, start angle in here. And I'm hoping I named these. I don't know why I named them. Let's go find out why I named them. Also, let's make a material instance of this, because mi underscore radial entry underscore generic. Save that. Put that on our material here. Now it's a material instance. Take a look at this. Take a look. We've got angle span and we got start angle. So those are the names that we used. Angle, span, and start angle. And if we're lucky, we just get a circle. Do not get a circle. Some of my math is messed up. But what's happening at the moment is we're actually moving those around the view. Let's just make sure that this is 0 by default. There we go. All right. Now, question mark. What have I done wrong? Okay, so we got 180 degrees. We start at 90. We're then drawing this here. We needed to add half. So in the radial menu, we're doing the start angle incorrectly here, or we're adding this together incorrectly. So if we take a look, our first entry is 180 degrees, which means we start our next entry at 90 plus half of whatever it is. What we might need to do is take this minus 1. Potentially. Might need that. Just trying to figure this out. It's more maths. More maths. If you're into maths, stick around. If you're into tech art, stick around. Tech art is it's also maths. So we have a total span. In the first instance, we just want that to be drawn at 0, 180 over the top. Second one, we want to be at 90 degrees, which is this divided by 2. Sure. If this is 0. Oh, wait. We're doing this right. Everyone leaves, yeah. If you're into math, stick around. But view count goes to 0. Okay. Okay, cool. So solving problems live, unlike all the other tutorials that you'll ever see. All right, sweet. Where are we? With this? We are saying It's 108. In fact, did I do this in my own Radial? I'm just cheating. I'm just cheating every step of the way now. This is what you get when you do stuff beforehand. I want to say something. Whoop. If we have no span, then it should be 90 in this case. And when we do the next one, we want to be placing its start angle at whatever total span is, plus myself and half, potentially. So plus this divided by 2. This is going to look really messy until I get this done. Okay, so now let's say we've done that. What happened? Let's find out. Let's find out what would happen. I can just about tell that these are individual. Yeah, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4? Question mark? Plus the original. Okay. Just move forward. I've got to draw this on screen. I've also got to know where we're placing our mouse in relation to this. But drawing it on screen is going to be the actual hard part, and the rest will come as it comes. So let's open the GA ping. And someone asked earlier, have you had experience with enhanced input hold actions? Well, we're about to find out how that goes. So GA ping here. Let's go back. Let's do release, input release, wait for input release. So before, when we press the ping button down, it would just immediately attempt to do this action. And what I want to do now is I want to wait for the release, and if the hold time was, let's just say, more than 2.5 seconds on release, if it wasn't, we'll consider it as a tap. Test already released, yes. If it was already released, so this is tap, and then this is hold. This isn't exactly what the person was asking for, because I'm in a gameplay ability, so I get to add some extra code. So it's not really fair, but this is a way you can do it if you're using the gameplay ability system. Okay, if it was a hold, then let's just really quickly code this, and we'll clean up the rest later, because we're at 1.5 hours in and we've got like half an hour left. So let's do Radial. I can't do Radial menu because it's abstract. So I was talking earlier about abstract classes. I cannot add a Radial menu in here because it is an abstract class. So let's go and make a styled widget user interface blueprint called Radial menu. Widget Radial menu. Widget underscore Radial menu generic. Save that. Okay. Let us cut overlay entries from here so that this variable becomes invalid. Let's clean up this graph a little bit as well, because this is a little bit bothering. At least a little bit better. Eternal error has occurred. The music is listening to my engine. Okay. All that. Yeah, so when we construct entries and we try and get the Radial entry panel, it's currently invalid for the parent, so it actually won't do anything on the the default class that's just meant to be functionality based, and then the styled radial menu will actually have this, and we will actually override the get panel, get entry. Okay, compile. Get entry. Get entry panel. We'll use this overlay entries, and then now when we go over here and compile, it should just draw. Sweet. Go into the graph, make sure we don't have anything in here. In the event graph, we don't want anything in there. Okay, so that's our radial menu generic. Let's go back to our GA ping. We're going to draw that. We're going to add it to the viewport, and we're just going to see if that even works. It is going to add to the full extent of the viewport, so it's going to actually break immediately. So the one thing that we want to do is actually anchor it to the center of the screen. So let's go 0.5, 0.5. We want to set its size, set desired size in viewport. I think I chose like 500 by 500 just for now. We'll just stick that in there. Let's collapse this to a function, create radial menu. Okay. Alongside doing, this is currently server only, so this is going to immediately break because this is a server only function. Wow. Balls. This is a server only radial menu, but all that means is that for now we're going to play standalone and we are the server. And so this will be fine for prototyping, and I'll have to come back and do the replicated code later. And to do that, I'll probably use like, call it like a gameplay effect, and the effect will trigger on the player when he has the tag radial or something like that. Or we'll have a separate gameplay ability that runs alongside, which is the radial ability that will trigger to draw this. Create radial menu. Draw it to the screen. Be 500 units. Be anchored to the center. Let's set the alignment. It should be 0.5, 0.5 from the center. Awesome, awesome. Set show mouse cursor on the player controller. Get player controller. This is all stuff you shouldn't do in a gameplay ability. Show mouse cursor true. Okay. Get player controller. Be okay if I can spell. Get player controller 0. That'll do. Let's see if that works. We've hit play. We've pinged. Ping, ping, ping. Hold it down. Didn't work. Hold it down. Didn't work. Okay, which means that the GA ping test release, this has it been released, is just immediately falling down the second track. Which means it's immediately releasing. Okay, so let's go and see if that is related to another bug that we had in another stream that we ignored. Enhanced input gameplay ability system. Project config. I think there's a project config for this. Yeah, we have an issue basically where we go and pop open our core player controller here. We actually had to put this in here. Now, if I cut this, go and check out the ability system component. We've assigned GA ping through the IA ping to activate on pressed, but it doesn't work if we actually do this, which means that a portion of this system doesn't work. I never understood why. We have the right player controller. We have the right HUD. We have the right pawn. And so our gameplay ability system is just not triggering that. And it could just be a problem with the plugin that I'm using, that like the plugin isn't there yet. I feel like there was a tick box. It's always a tick box. I'm reading through forum threads right now. Edit project settings. Gameplay ability system. Let's go find it. System work. Gameplay ability settings. Reading through all of these, and none of them seem like a relevant tick box. How about enhanced input? Is there a tick box in here that says like can work with gameplay abilities? Nothing is jumping out to me. Sadly. Yeah, gas companion. Nope. Not that one. Well, that basically makes this annoying. This isn't going to work. Unless we don't test already released. And if we do that, it never gets the release. But I guess it's already released. Because I need to plug this back in here. It annoys me that this doesn't work with abilities or enhanced inputs. So. Whatever. Okay, let's try this. That doesn't work, and then if I go into the GA ping and I click this tick box, it's going to work, but it's always going to fall down the second track because it thinks that I've released the button. Okay, awesome. Let's go and find the input for this IA ping and try and make a hold action variant. Let's hold in here. Let's do IA ping hold. Do this one is triggered on released. We'll do that. This one is triggered on here. This should only trigger when I release the mouse button. Oh, immediately triggers. Isn't that just great? Immediately triggers. Okay, so completed. I suppose. Release. Cool. Okay, so it does that. Okay, so then we say IA ping hold. I need this on? Is that necessary? So I'm still trying to like debug why it's why it's not letting me hold. That is doing something. That is actually triggering when I release it now, which is impressive. But is it only because it's not started until... Yeah. Okay. For a second there I thought I got really lucky. But no, this is just a default trigger type. And even if I add just into here, go into here, yeah. It just always considers it as released. I really need to know why my gameplay ability is not working with inputs correctly. Really annoying me. Gas companion. Gas companion. Input. Enhanced input. Enhanced input settings. Okay, there's a message. There is a message, and it says I should move this here. Didn't like that. Add a valid. So I'm like confused why it's not working, but then I remember that I'm using someone else's plugin. And then it still can't get the enhanced input local player subsystem, because despite this saying event client possessed, it is not actually the client possessed event. Assign controller, assign receive controller changed, event controller. Event receive controller changed if the new controller is valid. The new controller is a local controller or a local player controller, even better. Then get their enhanced input system and use it. So the event that I was using before, the event client possessed, that was from the project that I'm using as well. So this is native Unreal. It still doesn't work. Isn't that hilarious? Why would that be the case? New controller is valid. It is a local player controller. Add the mapping context to the enhanced input local player subsystem. Amazing. Get enhanced. Nope. Has to player control. This is fun. This is fun. Input settings. Enhanced input local player subsystem. Can I get that from here? Cannot get it from there. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, we're going to need to actually need to hook that up. There we go. Bam. Tell you what, though, it's still not working. Does it ever trigger? It does. Does the GA ever ping? Trigger? Sorry. Bam. 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 Nope. Not even once. Not even once. What if we wait for 2.5 seconds? I feel like it's some sort of weird race condition. Nope. Wow, that's annoying. Is this even valid? It is. So why wouldn't that be valid? Ah. Well, the stream slows down, I suppose, when you start coming into things like this. Why is a local player controller? It should be fine. That's really strange and concerning. The new controller is my player controller, and he doesn't have an enhanced input local player subsystem. Maybe I'm doing that wrong. Enhanced subsystem. Yeah, weird. I'm never going to be able to solve this problem if I can't give him a subsystem. He doesn't have a subsystem. He does have a subsystem, but that doesn't work. So then the next question is, if I come in here, what if I grant him the ability? Can't grant an ability in this plugin? Well, maybe they called it give ability. Give the ability ping. Put set. Press input ID. That's weird. Why would I need to do that? Question mark. Event receive controller chip. Blah 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 blah. Do the thing. Used to be a way. GSC core. Act component provides some stuff. Manager ability queue input. Oh, here you go. That sounds like it would be reasonably important. An ability input binding component. Yeah. Where's my player controller gone? Not player controller piece. Can I control Z? Shall I get this back? There we go. All that. Come back here. Put this. Add an input binding component. That seems really important. Let's try that now. Bam. Oh my god, we have pings, and it's when we release. Oh, I got a radial on the top left. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. That entire time, it didn't have this component, which is the input binding component for the plugin. It doesn't tell you actually need to add that. Write that in big capital letters, actually. Where am I going to write this? The character here. Don't forget the input binding component. Little note from my future self that goes, I solved this problem in a project once. And I can't remember how, but I know which project it was. Okay, so now, this only triggers on release. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to go into the GA ping. We are going to hit this create radial because, oh, it's only on release. Damn. It is only on release. We want it to not pop up on release. We want to delay here by like 0.3 seconds and create the radial. And if it was more than this, we just end the ability. Otherwise, we create the radial and then we end the ability. The next, we will then have our mouse available and should be able to click things. Let's try it. Cool. Just stack up 100 of these widgets. Perfect. Okay, so a little bit spicy, but we can at least figure the rest out now. Okay, so when we create this radial, we added it to the viewport, we set the anchors to the center, we set the size, we set the alignment. Crazy. It didn't put it in the middle. Regardless of all of that, you still need to set the position to the center of the screen. I always thought, oh, I suppose I could set position to 0 at that point? Because setting position to 0, now that the anchoring has been changed, it should just bolt it to the center of the screen. No. Okay, we just get view size. We divide that by view scale. Divide that by 2. That should put it in the middle of the screen. Nice. Not quite. Not quite. Maybe you're supposed to multiply this by view scale and then by 0.5. Still doesn't seem like it's this, unless it is the center of the screen and the crosshair is off. I would be surprised if the crosshair. I would be surprised if the crosshair was off. Let's remove this for a second. Now that's in the center of the screen. Let's do a small window. Okay. Okay, sure. All right. So we get to show our mouse cursor, but annoyingly, for whatever reason, the view is still reacting to look input. So another thing that we can do is we can set ignore look input here to true. And now we can, once this is all working, yeah, now we can start like playing with the radial while we're moving around it. Not really thinking too much about the system design at this point. In terms of where all these inputs and where all of this UI is being drawn, handled, and managed, because I'm rushing. and I have 9 minutes. The stream might... But we can carry on at least in another stream, which is a shame. But it is what it is, and we don't really have anything massive to show for the 2 hours that we just spent, other than a bunch of systems and tech design. But if you're still here, obviously there's something of value. Ping range. Don't care about all this. Okay, so we're going to set up this widget. Drawing it on the screen. Next thing that we need to do is highlight the one that we're aiming at. Another thing I want to do is set the mouse position viewport for this player to this value. Whoops. So here, I'm just saying, if you've opened the Radial for the first time, the nice user experience would be to have that Radial already open on screen. Sorry, what am I saying? I'm tired and it's late. To have my mouse on screen, in the center of the screen, and ready to move things around, and then we can see that the delta of the mouse is affecting my animation on my character, which is just hilarious to me, because I'm not in control of that plugin. But I'm going to have to go in there and stop that at some point, because that's very silly. Okay, so we now have our mouse moving around, and a real easy way in the menu, which is where the menu master or the menu parent is on tick, because this is only visible when it's summoned. On tick is going to be fine for this. My cat wants out. 2 seconds. Okay, I am back. Because we know that this is only going to tick when it's on screen, because it's only drawn when it's requested. We can use the tick here. It's going to be good for that. So then it's going to highlight the hovered entry, or update hovered entry, we'll call it. Update hovered entry. We will get the player controller who is drawing this, and we will get their mouse position. We will put some music back on, because I can't work in silence. There must be drum and bass. Yeah. And then once we get this, we have a vector 2D. Make a vector 2D that we can distance, direction, to direction, and like, no, not that one. We'll basically minus this from the center of the screen. View size divided by 2. Oh, wait, no, I didn't really want to split. I wanted to convert to float. Divide by 2. This minus gives us a direction, as long as we normalize it. And this normalized direction we can then use to move something in a circle around the viewport. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask GPT, I'm going to take a picture of this, because this is like the start of the math, and I want GPT to just give me the last part of the math. So I'm just going to go in, I'm going to paste it from my clipboard and say, I'm trying to get a widget transform angle from the direction between the mouse position and center screen, starting at 0 top of screen, 180 bottom to 360, I suppose. I think makes sense. Makes sense to me. And then it's going to do some consideration, and then it's going to pump me out something. So then we update the hovered entry. We're going to need to go through the entry panel, children, get all children. We need to go through each of these. We would cast the wait, these are, yeah, we would cast these to entry radials. Cast to widget radial entry. We actually don't need to do a cast here, do we? We can go through every entry span. Yeah, we could do it this way, and then we could get child at the result. Right. So I was just thinking out loud, but also not out loud. We take the entry span and we add it to a local variable called total entry span. Compile this together, and then we'll also have, so we'll do that towards the end here. Say we also have variable here, mouse angle, I guess we'll call it, or we'll just call it angle, because eventually we'll make this, call this input angle, I suppose. Eventually we'll turn this into gamepad as well. Basically, if entry angle is less than one of them as we go through, then we were selected on the previous one. If that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to start. We're going to say, hey, is my input angle within... It's actually going to be a pain because I'm drawing them like split. So part of my condition is going to be negative, like what it's going to be like, oh, it's 360-ish, and then also 0 to 100. I've made it hard for myself. Made it hard for myself because we can't really see it in this image, but I'll bring up an image where you can see it. So open this image here. When my mouse is here, it's a 0 angle, right? Ish. From here this way, but from here this way, it's like a 240 to 360 angle on this end, but we're still hovering this element. So this element's true condition for being hovered is anything that is 340 to 360, or whatever it's going to be, right? 240 to 360, and anything from 0 to 90 at the same, also true. So if we're anywhere here, it's true. Here, it's a little easier because we're just saying like, okay, we're moving around. We're not less than the 90 that we needed for this. And so are we less than the next one? And we are less than the next one, which means we must be hovering this one. And then as we keep going, we can keep hovering them. But for this first element that has a span that can go left, yeah, we basically need to go all the way around and do the less than, less than, less than, less than, and then there's no more entries to check. So our angle, we need to check on the first entry. We just need to check the negative on the first entry, and that should be fine. So we'll do that. So we'll just check on the first entry. That'll be fine. So basically, if this is equal to 0, then get this divided by 2, and get a subtract node, and get 360 minus whatever this half is, and if our angle is more than or equal to that value, or less than the half value, then we will be hovered on the first entry. Okay. Let's get some promotions here. So we'll do this. Promote to local variable L. Just call it index. Take index, and we'll take the array. And we'll just get a reference for this here. On here, and then we're going to get what do we get next? We're going to get total span, add this towards the end. Going to need a sequence. Does the first check. Just says, is the index equal to, nope, it's the wrong one. Is the index equal to 0? Where are we at now? We've hit 2 hours. Okay, we're going to finish this little bit just to highlight them, because I think otherwise we're sort of not great otherwise. Okay, so index sequence. The second part of the sequence is just to update the total span. The first part of the sequence is to check if we're element 0, and if we are element 0, then we're asking if we're also negative, drawn negative, which we can be, only by a small margin. And that should be, if that is true, then we get the widget at this index, cast it to an entry, a new little function in here that's just set hovered. Nope, no boolean, hovered. Menu, set hovered, true. Write this to a variable. Last hovered entry. Last hovered entry is valid. Set hovered to false. Let's convert this to, let's convert all of this to a function. Class a function, set hovered entry. This will do. We can get this sequence. If there was already a hovered entry, we want to unhover it. And then if there is a valid entry here, convert to valid get. If there is a valid one of these, then we're going to hover it and set it to the last. Okay, so that's our new little function that sets our hover state, which is how we're going to switch the material parameter. We have a radial generic entry, which we can event hovered in here. You can always call the parent function, unless you're intentionally overriding it. In here, we can get the dynamic material set scalar. If I remember correctly, we just called this hovered. So copy that, hovered, and it's just 0 or 1. That'll be super handy for that. All that, awesome. Then we have a little hover state. That's just going to change the visual in here that has somehow disappeared. Oh, it's 0 angle. Let's change that. Whoa, 45-degree angle. Cool. That's pretty cool. 45-degree angle here. Ping hold we actually don't need anymore. Delete that. I will go in and have a look into that input hold at some point for the person who asked, and try and do something about that. Player component, don't need that. GA ping, may as well leave it open. Materials, yes, let's save them. Entry, set hovered, we needed that. This, cool. Update hovered. This is the new entry. And then as soon as that happens, we can just return, because we know we've succeeded. If we're not the if we're not succeeding on this first entry, so we'll just wrap this with a comment. First entry hover check, because it has a special rule for having negative side. If we're not the first entry, entry hover check here. What's going to happen is we're going to fail here. We're going to go into our sequence. We're going to add the span. We need to add selective span to this. That just asks if this is element 0, we need to do this divided by 2. And if we're not, the first element, we actually already wrote some of this, construct entries here. If we're not the first element, just this element divided by 2. Oh, no, sorry, I did that wrong. Read one more time. With feeling. When we add to the span, we either add the first end, or the whole, There. You could technically move this. So here's an interesting point. I've got 2 array entries here. We're accessing this array, and we're getting something from it. And in a profiler, if you're doing that on tick, it's going to come up quite significantly in some cases. In this selector, what actually happens is it fires both of these gets. And so you can clean this up by, instead of putting this selector here, you can put the selector here, and you can say, hey, if it's exactly the same outcome, but we now have one less get occurring in the graph and being run, because the selector will actually run both. And so here you say if it's the first index, we divide it by 2, otherwise divided by 1, which is just the same thing. Cool. Increment angle. And then here, it's much more simpler. If we are less than our input angle. Have a look at this. How do you write this one? So we fail the first one. Let's say we were going to succeed on the second one. Our angle needs to be less than the total 90 plus the next bit. It needs to be like this. So now what we're saying is when we get to the first element, which is 45 degrees, and we had 90, bring that picture back up. If my mouse is here, we're saying, is my position less than 90 plus 45? And if it is less than 90 plus 45, then we are hovered over this number 1 element. So then we would just do the same thing, and we would return, hovering this index. And it just keeps going until it gets to the end, and then when it gets here, we just return. Actually, we would have to set hovered entry as nothing if we get to the end, because we are somehow not hovering anything. And then this can all get plugged in. So now the last thing to do is go back to GPT that we had run a question on earlier. And it has come back to us with some answers here. So I will now attempt to reproduce whatever it's telling me to do. You've already mostly doing what you need. Add these nodes. It's an ATAN 2 again, which makes sense. ATAN 2 degrees. Apparently you don't need to normalize for this to work, which I find interesting. I'm just going to plug these in. Angle from right. Shift so the 0 is up. plus 90. I figure it's going to be minus 90. Now the angle is an F mod. F mod? Do we have F mod? Isn't it just mod? Okay, so we're moduloing here. We're doing the angle from the top plus 360 and 360. Whoop, and 360. Apparently so that's just going to give us something that is always in a circle. So now we just set our local variable for input angle. And then I'm going to, before I even try any of the following code, I'm just going to debug this, just to see if this is actually relevant, because it may be complete garbage. And I'm going to stick a key in here. So you can stick a key in the print string. It's going to allow you to just have one debug on screen. And in my event graph, I'm going to call that update hovered entry function that we just made. Hit play. Stick it on screen, move my mouse around, and I get nothing. Why? Did I set this to never tick? That's defaults. Where's the tick conditions for this widget? Auto. Sir, there's definitely a tick. Event graph. I know why. I know why this is. This is a child inheritance widget issue, like an inheritance issue in widgets. You need to call the tick parent. It doesn't natively call the parent tick when you have children in this manner. Okay, so here is wrong. We move around here. All the way around, we get to 0 here. So I'm back in here and not add 90. See what happens. So this is 180 and then it's 0 at the bottom. So maybe I was right when I said it needed to be minus 90. Going to 0. It's becoming 0 as it gets to here. Okay, what was it by default? Do I need to flip these? It's starting to become my question now. Yeah, I think we did need to flip those. I did that wrong. Okay. 90. Cool, okay. 0. All the way around, all the way to 360, and then 0 again. Okay, so we have the correct reference frame for the angle that we wanted. And now, just get rid of some of this math. It's up, Control A, move all this over. See if this works. Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, sweet. So we have a really dodgy representation of a hover, but it's very clear. It's definitely happening. And that means in the next time I come and talk about radial menu systems, we will be able to add clicks to this. I always get to the end of one of these streams and I think to myself, man, wouldn't people benefit from just knowing what to do in 10 minutes than seeing me do the radio that is producing something off the cuff and from a little bit of memory and then opening old projects and pulling things in, but it doesn't really show the real process, right? Because to some degree, if I was building a radio in a new project, I would just use my primer. I'd be like, oh, you need a radial? I have a radial. Unless a programmer is writing it. Or you need a prototype for a radial? I have a radial. I like this radial. Do you have any other needs for your radial? The radial I have is designed in such a way that it's intended to be highly customizable and modular. So what we've done today is we've created things like custom spanning radial buttons with custom stylable entries. And the concept is that you can have like the top entry like goes on fire when you hover it, because it is a widget that you can configure to just be a custom widget that does all of that stuff. And then this one turns into ice, and this one turns into wind. And like that's basically what I want to do with this is really animate it, so as you go around it, it's like doing super awesome stuff. It's just some crazy concept that I wanted to do. But we've done that now. We've started off a really modular system in like 2 hours. Best implementation of a radial that I'm going to have implemented, right? Because every time you do it, you learn from the past. So, yeah, hopefully that's pretty cool for you guys. Read the chat here. Don't know if anyone's talking in chat. Don't see anything in chat, but that is me for today. Radial menu has begun. We have a really awful implementation of a radial menu. It's not that awful. It's just semi-awful. So what I might do, there's a shader there's a new material node for like your mouse, right? Like where is your mouse basically? And so rather than having a widget element here that has like a bar that moves around based on the angle. Oh, I totally could have done this whole thing in the material. I just realized I can take that that mouse position, and rather than doing any of the code that I just did in Blueprint, I could literally put the one piece of code into the widget and into the material, and the material can just get that direction on the GPU and determine whether this should be highlighted. The reason I brought that up is because then I could just highlight, I could do some cool stuff with the mouse position basically and highlight like the best part here. I could have a spinning circle that's based on your mouse position. And so I think I'll come back and I'll do that off stream and then I'll show it, because that would be really cool. It's like this element highlights and it's all in the material through the directional math that you can do through the mouse position that's now available in materials. Let's just double check that quickly. Just going above and beyond. Mouse. Position. Cursor position. Screen size. Screen resolution. Resolution. View size. Divided by 2. Minus. Radial menu. It's over here. Do this. Literally just rewrite all this code. I say I'm going to do this on the next stream, but I'm totally doing it right. Then add 360, then mod. Can I mod in here? Modulo 360. So that's our angle. And then all we really want to do, well, I guess we're going to need an if. It's a bit of a shame. If this value, and then this value needs to be, it needs to be two ifs. And we take raw start angle and raw angle span. Say stuff like, okay, given the raw start angle, add this divided by 2. Minus this divided by 2. I don't think this is going to work here, because this is just going to go into negative values. Just a quick GPT question. Just a quick one. Now we're at the part of the stream where I literally just don't say anything. I just focus. So if you're still here, congrats. Here's the clean, reliable way to do is the cursor angle inside the wedge in a material using your raw start angles. Okay, it's just interested in trying this out. Oh, I just realized as well, one thing that I can do to make this a lot prettier is just add 0.1 to this. It's really nice. Oh, look, that's so much better now, sort of. It still does this, like, really, like, yeah, it's kind of annoying. But anyway, we have that now at least. That's really cool. Okay, so what we're doing up here is we're saying if we take the angle span divided by 2 and we take the start angle and we add, in fact, we already did it here. We subtract half the span and we add half the span, then we get the positions at which, or the directions at which our mouse is actually within this, in the material, through this material function cursor position. Then we're doing the direction from the center here, so we're just getting this angle. Then we apply a modulo to this, so we get start, end, end, and angle. Okay, so let's modulo. It's always with 360, and it's always plus 360. That's cool. Okay. Now modulate all variables to keep them to 360 there. Now apply the wrap logic. If norm end is less than norm start. So if we put little notes on these, so you can add little comments in here, we can do norm start, which is start. Sorry, wait, what? Yeah, minus realized end, I guess. It's plus the half span. Then we've got up here so let's just get this and say if the end is less than the start, then we have certain ifs in here. Can you do and? Is there an and? That would be really helpful. No. But if it's less than, then we need to check. We need to do some checks. If it's less than, then that will be the wrapping version, which is where we ask if norm angle is more than or equal to the start. Or less than equal to the end. That should be the other way around. If I'm reading that correctly, that should be the other way around. Because at the end it's coming up to 360, so we're trying to say, hey, if we angle. We have an end and a start. It is wrapped to 360. In fact, wait a second, it's fine to just take 0 and minus 45 and then ask if we're... Yeah. Yeah, I don't need to do this. I can just ask... Because it's okay if it goes to negative 90. I can still ask if it's more than negative 90. Oh yeah, but the angle... yeah, but the angle is in 360 space. No, so I do need to do it this way. Okay, so we have the norm end. If it is... Let's just put this in here. If end is less than start. Is not the case that we're trying to solve. So let's just solve the case that we're trying to solve first, which is if the start is if start is more than end, i.e. first entry can only happen on the first entry. If start is more than the end, then we will ask a question: is the normalized angle start is currently 360. Start getting some zeros and ones in here basically, just to create a mask. The answer for the question. So hey, if the angle is than the start, which is in this case like 350. The angle start is 350. If it is, if it's equal, we'll do 1, and if it's the angle is less than the start, so it's yeah, it's outside of it, then it's just 0. Otherwise, it is more than the start. So we ask if the angle is less than the end. It'll be this one. And if it's equal, we can do 1. And if it's more than, we can do 0. And that's just asking if it's the start one. But that should be the same logic for all of them. If angle is more than start and less than end. And it's all modulated, so this should be fine. So what I want to try and do is just put this into a named variable that just says like mouse angle. Down here in our composite, which I need to clean up a bit because we didn't really do a great job here. So take that mouse angle, which is just 0 or 1. Just going to multiply this by like a color. Something simple. Can I just have a color, please? Compare it to param. There we go. Let's take this color. We'll just add that to... Oh, tell you what, we'll just draw it in here. We'll just add 1. Or we could use this as a lerp. So we could say The mouse angle is inside. We will do this, I think. This will work. Haven't tried it before. No, but we do have new graphics that I don't know. Oh, it was the crosshair. Got really excited there for a second. It's like something is happening. Oh, well, look, we got a blue one there. That one works. That either means that the mouse is always returning the same input, but no matter where my mouse actually is, or my math is wrong. Yeah, one of the points of using the angle math for everything is that you don't have to, you can't hover a wedge in Unreal, right? There's no collision for a radial wedge, so you just use angle math, and now this will also work with gamepad, which is cool. This one is blue, so we did get something out of this test. Very experimental, and that's the whole point, right? Try new things, learn new things. I'll be back another time. Thanks for joining. I've been Ren with UX is Fine. It's like the longest stream I've done in ages. It's like 2.5 hours long. And we made a ring glow. So, welcome to Game Dev. See you in the next one. Thank you.